When we moved into Hollow Creek, it looked like the kind of town that had been designed on a computer. Symmetrical cul-de-sacs, pastel-colored houses, even those friendly mailboxes with little red flags that stood upright like they were saluting. My wife loved it. Our realtor used the word charming no less than 8 times during the showing. But there was something about the air here that never felt right. Like the houses had been built too fast. Like the roads curved just slightly off kilter. Like the wind blew in from the wrong direction. Our backyard overlooked a brand new playground. All plastic slides and cushioned turf, recently built according to a city sign that still had the ribbon clippings stapled to its corners. The first time I looked at it from our deck, I thought, this feels like a mistake. It wasn't the equipment, it was what was under it. A local contractor later confirmed it. I met him at the gas station the day after we moved in. I said something casual about the view, and he glanced toward the park like he hated it. You know what that used to be? He said, not waiting for my answer. The county morgue. They tore it down in the 90s. Built some condos. Then those condos started flooding. They pulled him down, too. Took years before anyone touched the land again. He looked at me, serious. You see anything weird, don't blame the playground. I thought he was being dramatic. Every town had its stories, right? Small town lore, local ghosts, kids daring each other to spend a night in the woods. But that night, as I stood out on the deck and looked over the jungle gym silhouetted by the orange streetlight, I felt something twist in my stomach. A wrongness I couldn't explain. And then I saw the girl. She stood near the swing set, completely still. Barefoot, wearing pajamas, hair sticking in wild angles like she'd just escaped a nap. I squinted. The streetlight buzzed overhead. She didn't move. I walked down toward the fence, calling, "Hey? You okay?" But she turned and ran into the shadows beyond the jungle gym without saying a word. I didn't sleep well. The next day, I brought it up to my wife over coffee. Claire stirred her cream in slow circles and said she was probably just a neighbor's kid. Out after midnight? Claire shrugged. Kids do weird things. You know that better than anyone. She wasn't wrong. I used to be a middle school counselor. I'd seen more than my share of strange behavior, especially when grief was involved. But this felt different. Off somehow. Later that afternoon, I wandered down to the playground. No kids. Just heat rising from the rubber ground padding and a lonely breeze that made the chain on the swing creak faintly. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. At the far edge of the mulch border, beneath the monkey bars, was a thin line of red powder, almost like it had been poured in a circle. I crouched and touched it. Not chalk. It left a residue on my fingers. I sniffed. Iron. Copper. Blood? Before I could process that thought, I heard a voice behind me. Don't step in it. I jumped. A boy was standing nearby. Maybe 10 years old, pale as paper, dark circles under his eyes like someone had erased half his sleep. He looked at the powder, then at me. That keeps them down. What? His eyes flicked to the monkey bars. Under there. It's where they keep the box. But it only works if the circle stays closed. I blinked at him. What box? He didn't answer. Just turned and walked off like we hadn't spoken at all. That night, I went online and searched Hollow Creek plus Morgue plus Playground. The first 3 results were real estate blogs, but then I found a cached page from an old local newspaper. The article was from 1997. The headline, Exhumation Delayed as Condos Face Flooding Crisis. The piece mentioned an old county coroner's office that had been shut down. What caught my eye was a single paragraph. Due to reports of improperly stored remains and undocumented interments, construction efforts have been paused pending full recovery of all materials. Undocumented interments. I closed my laptop and stared into the dark. The third night, Claire and I were watching TV when the doorbell rang. It was 3:12 a.m. We both froze. No one rings a bell at 3:12 a.m. I opened the door cautiously. No one. But something was hanging from the door handle. A string. At the end of the string was a plastic hospital tag. I brought it inside. Claire didn't want me to, said it felt cursed. I agreed, but I needed to see it. The name on the tag was Meredith Crowley. Date of death, 1991. I turned it over. Scrawled on the back, in pen. She's not buried deep. The next morning, the playground was closed off with yellow tape. A sign had been posted. Warning under repair, sinkhole damage. Do not enter warning. But I saw something the city workers didn't cover. Near the base of the slide, the earth had cracked in a near-perfect circle. Beneath it, something black glinted in the dirt. Like a lid. Or a box. Just like the boys said. And next to it, the red circle had been smudged. I didn't know it yet, but that was the last morning Hollow Creek would feel even remotely normal. The city crew was gone by noon, but the yellow caution tape remained. Claire said the sinkhole was all over the neighborhood group chat. One mom claimed her daughter's foot sank 3 inches just walking near the mulch. Another said the whole place should have been condemned years ago. I kept thinking about that dark glint under the dirt. That box. I went out after sunset. The air smelled stale, like mildew, and something older, like rot covered up with too much disinfectant. The swing chains creaked even though there was no wind. The red circle was now smeared into broken, rusty streaks. Like something had tried to scrub it away, or something inside had been pushing out. I climbed over the tape and crossed to the cracked earth. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But no, the soil was pulsing. Ever so slightly. Like something underneath was breathing. I crouched, hesitated, and then began scraping away the dirt with my hands. It didn't take long. 2 inches down, my fingernails hit metal. Cold, smooth, the size of a lunchbox. I pulled more dirt away until I could see it. A rusted black container with no hinges, no markings. Just a faint seam around the lid. I didn't open it. Because the second I touched it, I heard the girl again. From behind me, he's still in there. I turned fast. Same kid. Barefoot, pajamas, wild hair. But this time, her eyes looked wet and milky. Not crying. Not blind. Just absent. She tilted her head. If you open it, he can use your name. I froze. What do you mean? But she was already walking away, and this time she didn't run. She just faded into the shadows like she belonged there. I went home with dirt under my nails and questions I didn't want to say out loud. The next morning, I got a knock on the door. It was the boy. The pale kid who'd warned me not to break the circle. He had something in his hand, a bundle wrapped in wax paper and string. He held it out to me like a gift. You need this, he said, or he'll take your skin. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't even want to know what was inside. But I took it. Inside was a bird. Dead. Dried. Head twisted backward. Its eyes had been replaced with black stones. What is this? I asked. He looked at me flatly. A placeholder. For what? He pointed toward the backyard. For when he takes your shape. I stepped back. Who is he? But the boy just said, if you hear tapping, don't answer. He's practicing. He left me standing there, holding that awful, dead thing. I didn't tell Claire. I wanted to. But how do you explain something like that without sounding insane? She'd already been tense since the doorbell incident. She started sleeping with the TV on. Said the static made her feel safer. But that night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to tapping. Not knocking. Tapping. 3 slow taps. Pause. Then 2 faster ones. Not from the front door or from inside the house. I followed the sound. It was coming from the hallway closet. The one we hadn't even unpacked yet. The one where we'd stuffed old coats and winter clothes. The tapping stopped when I touched the knob. I opened it slowly. Nothing inside. Just our stuff. A few boxes, a coat rack, an old pair of boots. But one thing had changed. Pinned to the inside of the door was the hospital tag again. The one that had been on our doorknob. Only this time, there was a second name scrawled under Meredith Crowley. James Halter. 3:12 a.m. My name. My handwriting. Except I hadn't written it. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At dawn, I went back to the playground. The sun hadn't fully risen, and the shadows still lay long across the fake turf. The circle of red dust had been fully erased. The box still sat under the earth, pulsing slightly. But someone had disturbed it again. More than me. The soil was scattered like fingers had clawed out from underneath. I grabbed a shovel from my shed and returned before Claire woke up. This time, I dug properly. Not just around the box, but deeper, wider. I uncovered bones. Small ones. Dozens of them. Child-sized. Some still had fragments of clothing. A sock. A decayed ribbon. A plastic button shaped like a heart. There were more boxes, too. 5 in total. One of them had been smashed open, and whatever had been inside was gone. That's when I saw the girl again. Only now, she wasn't standing at the edge. She was sitting in the swing, slowly rocking back and forth. I didn't speak. She looked at me and said softly, the ones he takes, he puts back wrong. And then she smiled. Except it wasn't a child's smile. It was too wide. Too many teeth. And her eyes weren't milky anymore. They were mirrors. I backed away, dropped the shovel, and ran home like something was chasing me, even though I didn't hear footsteps behind me. But I felt them. That evening, I made a mistake. I told Claire everything. About the box. The girl. The bones. The second name on the tag. The boy who left me a dead bird. She didn't laugh. She didn't get angry. She didn't even speak at first. She just sat down, stared at the wall, and whispered. My grandmother used to say the dead don't stay put when the ground forgets them. And then she asked the worst question she could have. Have you looked at your own reflection lately? I stared at Claire after she said that. Have you looked at your own reflection lately? What kind of question was that? But I did. That night, I stood in the bathroom and looked at myself for a long time. At first, nothing seemed strange. Same stubble, same tired eyes, same wrinkle near my brow. But then I blinked. And my reflection didn't. It just kept staring. Not even subtly. Not a delayed blink or lag. I was sure. I blinked again. My reflection just watched. I stepped back in horror. And only then did it blink. Once. Slowly. As if mocking me. I turned off the light and left the bathroom, heart pounding. Claire had already locked the bedroom door. When I asked her why, she said, just to be safe. Then she turned away and pretended to sleep. Except I could tell she wasn't sleeping. Her breathing was all wrong. It came in shallow, uneven pulls, like she was faking it. Like she didn't want to be in the same bed with me anymore. Maybe she had a point. The next morning, there was a knock at the back door. Not the front. The back. I opened it to find nothing but air. But at my feet was another tag. This one looked burned. I picked it up with shaking hands. It read, Thomas W. Patient number 14. Open the box. He doesn't stop until he's full. There was something else beneath the writing. An impression pressed deep into the plastic. A fingernail had carved a single word. Hungry. I threw it in the trash and taped the back door shut. But I knew it didn't matter. Whatever was happening, tape wouldn't stop it. That afternoon, I went back to the city records office. I lied and said I was writing a book about old Hollow Creek legends. The archivist, a woman named Brenda, perked up immediately. Oh, you mean the old county morgue? She said. That place gave me the creeps when I was a kid. I leaned in. What happened to it? She rifled through a drawer and pulled out a faded blueprint and an old news clipping. They found bodies in the walls, she said matter-of-factly. 37 of them. Most were unclaimed. But some weren't. I read the article. A former employee named Thomas Wilkes had been arrested in 1991, accused of tampering with remains, hiding bodies, and performing ritual acts inconsistent with mortuary standards. Ritual acts. There was even a quote from the lead investigator. Some of these coffins had no bodies. Others had more than one. And some had things that weren't human at all. I nearly dropped the paper. Where is he now? I asked. Wilkes? Died in holding. Cut his own throat with a button from his shirt. Brenda shook her head. Weird thing is, when they buried him, someone dug up the grave the next day. Casket was empty. Still is. That night, Claire packed a suitcase. I'm going to stay with my sister, she said. I need time. And space. You're not well. I'm telling you the truth, I said. This isn't in my head. She stared at me for a long time. Then, softly, I think whatever's happening, you brought it into the house. And I don't want it near me. She kissed my forehead, and it felt like a goodbye. She left at 8:30 p.m. By 9 o'clock, the house was dead silent. And that's when the tapping started again. This time, it wasn't from the closet. It came from the attic. I hadn't been up there since we moved in. We'd shoved boxes into the crawl space and left it. But now, I climbed the ladder slowly, flashlight in hand. Dust swirled in the beam. At first, everything looked normal. A few old crates. A rocking chair left by the previous owners. Then I noticed the air was colder, much colder than it should have been in June. I turned to sweep the light across the far corner. And I saw myself. Standing. In the same clothes I was wearing. Smiling just a little too wide. I dropped the flashlight. The beam spun wildly, catching glimpses. Arms too long. A face too still. Eyes that didn't blink. When I scrambled down the ladder and slammed the attic shut, I heard footsteps still pacing above. Pacing in sync with mine. The next morning, I had a voicemail. From my own number. The message was 5 seconds of static, then a whisper. Come back to the box. I did. I had no choice. By mid-afternoon, I stood again at the edge of the playground. The caution tape was gone. The ground still cracked. The red circle now completely erased. But someone had added something else. Carved into the mulch with what looked like fingernails. I'm not hungry anymore. I'm lonely. I dug. Not with a shovel this time, with my bare hands. I found the box again. But it wasn't sealed anymore. The lid sat ajar. And it was empty. Not, never had anything inside empty, but used empty. The way a trap looks after it's already been sprung. And next to it, partially buried, was a mirror. Handheld. The kind they use to give to patients after surgery. I picked it up, and in its surface, I saw my face. But not the one I expected. It had too many teeth. And it was smiling. I threw the mirror into the trash the second I got home. It didn't break. Just landed in the bin with a hollow thud, like it had no weight at all. Like it was waiting. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat on the couch, watching static. Claire hadn't called. The house felt emptier than usual, like it was hollowing out around me. At 3:12 a.m. exactly, the TV turned off by itself, and the front door creaked open. Just a little. I crept toward it, my heart punching against my ribs. I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to look. But something made me. There was no one there. Just the wind, and the dim glow of the playground street lamp in the distance. But the sidewalk leading up to the house had changed. It was covered in footprints. Children's footprints. Dozens of them. Barefoot. Leading up to the house. And one word etched again and again into the concrete with something sharp. Welcome. 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 I slammed the door and locked it. But a second later, something tapped the glass. 3 times. Then again. And then I heard it. From the kitchen. A voice, high, soft, childish. Honey, can you come play with me? I turned. There was no one in the kitchen. But the light above the stove was flickering, and the fridge door stood wide open. Inside, all the shelves had been cleared out. Except one item remained. The mirror. I hadn't just thrown it out. It had come back. And taped to the handle was a new hospital tag. Claire Halter, visitor, 3:12 a.m. There was no handwriting this time. Just a drawing. A stick figure. One tall, one small, and a box between them. I tried calling Claire. No answer. I tried her sister's house. No answer. Finally, I drove there myself. 45 minutes through winding roads and morning fog. Her sister's driveway was empty. The house was open. Inside, the furniture was all intact, untouched. But something was off. Every mirror had been smashed. Every reflective surface had been covered in cloth. Even the windows had newspaper taped over them from the inside. On the kitchen table was a single envelope. My name was written on the front. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a photo. Me and Claire, smiling, standing at the edge of the playground when it was still under construction. Except something was wrong. The Claire in the photo had no face. Just a blur. Like the camera had refused to see her. And behind us, the jungle gym, supposedly still being built, was already finished. Worse, there were children playing on it. But the playground hadn't even opened yet. And the date stamp in the corner? 1991. I went to the boy. The pale one. I found him sitting on the curb across from the playground, eating from a box of dry cereal with his fingers. You knew, I said. You knew this wasn't over. He didn't look at me. You brought something back, he said. You broke the circle. You let him speak. What is he? The boy shrugged. He doesn't have a name. He just takes them. What does he want? To be remembered. He stood and looked me in the eye for the first time. You gave him a shape. Now he wants a home. I swallowed hard. Can I stop him? The boy's mouth twitched. You can feed him. That's not the same thing. He walked away after that. And I stood there, unsure what to do. Until I noticed the girl again. Swinging slowly. But she wasn't alone anymore. There were others. Children. Silent. Pale. Some barefoot. Some holding objects. A teddy bear. A mirror. A photo. They all turned to look at me. And one of them stepped forward. Claire. She didn't speak. Didn't cry. Just pointed at the ground beneath her. And I knew. She was under the playground now. With him. That night, I dug again. But not at the old spot. There was a second patch of ground, the merry-go-round. I remembered the contractor saying it was a newer addition, built after sinkage had been reported. The soil there was loose. Too loose. And not even a foot down. I hit cloth. A shirt. Claire's shirt. Her favorite one. The faded green one with the collar she always pulled when she was nervous. I dug faster. I found her shoes. Her necklace. Her phone. But no body. And then, the box. It was smaller. With this time. With a name carved on it in burnt letters. Claire Halter. Inside was a mirror. A cracked one. And when I looked inside, I saw not just myself, but dozens of faces behind mine. Blurred. Reaching. Mouthing something I couldn't hear. I closed the lid and stepped back. I wanted to scream. But the moment I opened my mouth, I heard someone else's voice come out. A child's. Laughing. And then whispering. Tag. You're it. I ran home. But my house was wrong now. The walls were too narrow. The corners too sharp. The lights too dim. And every mirror, every screen, showed someone else. Sometimes Claire. Sometimes the girl. Sometimes me. But not me. Not anymore. In the middle of the living room, I found a new object. A box. Just like the others. With a fresh tag taped to the lid. My name. My date of birth. And the words. Pending. 3:12 a.m. I left the house. I ran. But I didn't know where I was running to. Because no matter where I turned, I could still hear the swing chains creaking. And someone whispering. You brought him home. I don't remember how long I ran. Hollow Creek's neat little sidewalks started to blur together, like the town was folding in on itself. I passed identical houses, identical street signs. Mulberry Lane, Sycamore Drive, Mulberry Lane again. It was like being stuck in a loop. And then the fog rolled in. Not normal fog. This one had color. Brownish, tinged with green like pond water. It clung low to the ground and muffled all sound. Even my footsteps. At some point I found myself at the playground again. Of course I did. It's like I never left. But now it wasn't just a playground. It had changed. The swings twisted like vines. The slide curved in unnatural loops, stretching too long into the ground. And in the middle, right where the merry-go-round used to be, was a pit. A black, gaping wound in the earth. And someone was calling my name from inside it. James, come play. Bring your box. I backed away. No. The air rippled. The ground cracked. The entire jungle gym began to breathe, expanding and collapsing like a lung. And out from the pit came the girl. But not really. She was taller now. Her limbs too thin. Her eyes entirely white. Her smile stretched to her ears. And she wasn't walking. She was floating. Like her feet didn't quite believe in the ground. Behind her, the others followed. Children. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Pale, silent, eyeless. And in the middle of them, Claire. She looked at me with a strange softness and mouthed something. Run. But I couldn't. My feet wouldn't move. That's when the boy appeared beside me again. Too late, he said. You kept the box. What does it want? I asked. What does he want? He turned and looked toward the pit. It wants to be born. Then the earth cracked wide. Something massive shifted underneath. Not visible. Not fully formed. But present. Something with too many arms. Something that whispered in frequencies I couldn't hear, but still felt in my teeth. I stumbled backward. The boy handed me a mirror. I didn't want to look, but I did. And I saw myself, but fractured. In one shard, I was smiling. In another, I was digging. In a third, I was gone entirely, replaced by a child holding a tag with my name. I screamed and threw the mirror into the pit. And the whispers stopped. Just for a second. Then the girl screamed back. Louder than sound. Louder than anything I'd ever heard. And the swing chains snapped. And the sky turned black. And the ground gave way. I was falling. I woke up in a hospital. They said someone found me face down in the playground mulch. No signs of trauma. No drugs. Just unconscious, whispering something they couldn't make out. Claire was sitting beside me. I blinked. It looked like her. Sounded like her. But her eyes were wrong. They were too light. And when I blinked, she didn't. She held up a mirror. Welcome back, she said. And in the reflection, I was the one with the smile that didn't fit. That was 6 months ago. We moved away from Hollow Creek. Burned everything we owned. Started new jobs. New names. I stopped looking in mirrors. But I still get the tags. They show up in the mailbox. In my shoes. Taped to our car's windshield. The last one had a different name. Emily Halter, born due. We don't have a daughter. Not yet. But Claire's pregnant. Due in March. And sometimes, late at night, I hear her humming. A child's lullaby. The same one that played at the Hollow Creek playground. And I swear, I've heard her whisper into her belly. He's almost here. 2 nights ago, I heard a sound coming from the nursery. We haven't even furnished it yet. But something was moving inside. I opened the door. No one was there. Just a single item sitting in the crib. A small black box. With a tag. James Halter, father, 3:12 a.m. So now I wait. I know I'm not the first. I won't be the last. They built a playground where the morgue used to be. But they didn't bury what was beneath it. They just gave it more children. And now it's coming home.